For 5 years, everyone believed Krizzia, Belle, and I were destined for each other. We met in college, built a life together, and when I proposed at her favorite rooftop restaurant overlooking the city skyline, she said yes with tears in her eyes. Our engagement photos were all over social media. Friends called us relationship goals. My family adored her. But everything changed when my half-brother Kian Stone returned from his failed business venture in Europe. Suddenly, Krizzia was spending every day helping him readjust to American life, finding him an apartment, introducing him to her professional network, even coordinating his wardrobe for job interviews. Everyone watched, waiting for me to have a complete meltdown when she chose him over me instead. I felt like I'd been given a second chance at life, because what nobody knew, including Krizzia and Kian, was that I'd been planning something extraordinary. And now, they were about to receive a gift that would change all our lives forever. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. Okay, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The night Kian returned to Portland. Krizzia was in my penthouse apartment, going over the final details for our wedding venue booking. We'd been planning this day for 8 months. The ceremony at the historic Pittock Mansion, reception at the Pearl District loft space, honeymoon in Santorini. Everything was perfect, or so it seemed. I was reviewing contracts for my tech consulting firm when her phone buzzed with that distinctive chime, a sound I hadn't heard in 3 years. It was the custom notification she'd set for Kian before he left for his groundbreaking startup adventure in Berlin. The same sound that used to make her drop everything and rush to her phone. "That's Kian," she exclaimed, her face lighting up in a way I hadn't seen since. Well, since the last time he'd contacted her, I watched as she fumbled with her phone, nearly knocking over her wine glass in her excitement. "He says he's at PDX airport and needs a ride. His Uber got canceled and all the taxis are booked." 11 p.m., I pointed out. "Can't he take the MAX train?" She was already grabbing her keys. "Harrison, he's been traveling for 18 hours. Can't let him struggle with public transit and luggage." She paused at the door, looking back at me with that expression I'd learned to recognize, the one that meant her mind was already elsewhere. "Don't wait up. He'll probably want to catch up, and you know how he talks." Did I know how he talks? Kian Stone, my charming half-brother, could talk his way out of anything, including, apparently, a failed tech startup that had burned through $500,000 of investors' money in 2 years. After she left, I sat in my apartment overlooking the Willamette River, thinking about that notification sound. Before Kian left for Europe, he'd programmed it himself, telling Krizzia, "Every time you hear this, you'll remember that I'm thinking of you, no matter how far away I am." I'd been there when he said it. I'd watched her blush and laugh, telling him he was being ridiculous. But she never changed that sound. Not once in 3 years. That's when I realized something I'd been avoiding for months. I didn't actually want to marry Krizzia Belle. I thought I was supposed to want it. Everyone expected it. We'd been together since our senior year at Portland State, had built what looked like a perfect relationship. And marriage felt like the logical next step. But logical and desired aren't the same thing. The next morning, Krizzia returned with coffee and pastries from our favorite bakery on Hawthorne Boulevard. But something was different. She was glowing with an energy I hadn't seen in years. "Kian looks amazing," she said, setting down the coffee. "Europe really changed him. He's got all these incredible ideas for tech innovations, and he's so much more mature now." Mature. Asked the same guy who started 3 different companies before he was 25 and ran them all into the ground? She frowned. That was different. He was learning. Now he has real experience, real perspective. He's got this incredible opportunity with a venture capital firm downtown, but he needs someone to help him prepare. I could see where this was headed. "And you volunteered." "Harrison, he's family." "Your family? Don't you want him to succeed?" Family? That was rich. Kian and I shared a father who'd spent most of our childhood pitting us against each other, wondering why his brilliant older son couldn't be more like his charismatic younger one. When Dad died 5 years ago, he left his software development company to both of us equally, something that still irritated Kian, who felt he deserved a larger share. "Of course I want him to succeed," I said carefully. I just think it's interesting timing. What do you mean? I mean, we're getting married in 4 months, Krizzia. Don't you think you'll be a little busy helping your fiancé with his business? Instead of helping my brother with his career, she set down her coffee cup with more force than necessary. I can do both. I'm not some helpless princess who can only focus on one thing at a time. That wasn't what I'd meant, but I could see that conversation was heading toward an argument neither of us wanted. So I dropped it. Over the next week, Krizzia threw herself into Project Kian with the kind of enthusiasm she'd never shown for our wedding planning. She researched Portland's venture capital landscape, scheduled meetings with her contacts in the tech industry, even bought him a new suit for interviews using our joint credit card. I started paying attention to things I'd been ignoring, like how she always styled her hair differently on days she was seeing Kian, how she'd started wearing perfume to casual coffee meetings with him, how she'd check her reflection 3 times before leaving to meet him, but barely glanced in the mirror when we went out together. But the moment I knew for certain came 2 weeks later. I was in my home office, taking a call with a client, when I overheard her on the phone with her best friend Paige Wild. I don't know what to do, Krizzia was saying. I mean, Harrison is a good guy. He's stable, he's successful, he loves me. That sounds terrible, Paige said sarcastically. A man who loves you and wants to marry you. How awful. You don't understand. It's just ... safe. Predictable. I know exactly what my life will look like in 10 years if I marry him. Same apartment. Same routine, same conversations. And with Kian, anything could happen. He makes me feel alive again, Paige. Like I'm 22 and anything is possible. There was a long pause before Paige spoke again. Krizzia, you're engaged. You have a wedding in 3 months. I know. And maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe safe and stable is what I need. Maybe being with Harrison for the rest of my life wouldn't be the worst thing that could happen to me. Wouldn't be the worst thing that could happen to her. I ended my client call and sat in silence, staring at the Portland skyline through my office window. That's when it hit me. I felt relieved. Not hurt, not angry, not betrayed. Relieved because Krizzia was right about one thing. Our future was predictable. We'd get married, buy a house in the West Hills, have 2.5 kids, and spend 30 years in a comfortable, passionless marriage. Both of us wondering what we'd missed, but what she didn't know, what neither she nor Kian knew, was that I'd been preparing for this moment for longer than they could imagine. And their betrayal was about to become the best thing that ever happened to all of us, for very different reasons. 3 days after overhearing that conversation, I made my decision. I was sitting in my office at Stone and Associates Tech Solutions, the company my father had left to both Kian and me, when Krizzia burst through the door without knocking. Harrison, we need to move our engagement party to next month, she announced, not even sitting down. Kian has this incredible networking event coming up, and I promised I'd help him prepare. All the major VC firms in Portland will be there. I looked up from my laptop. What about our couples therapy session tomorrow? Can we reschedule? This is really important for Kian's future. More important than our future? She paused, finally meeting my eyes. For a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt, maybe, or recognition of what she was actually saying. But then she straightened her shoulders. Grayson, this is temporary. Once Kian gets established, things will go back to normal. Normal. As if there was anything normal about your fiancé dropping everything to play career counselor to your half-brother. Krizzia, I said calmly, I think we should call off the engagement. The words hung in the air between us. She stared at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. What did you say? Said we should call off the engagement, cancel the wedding, end this. Her face went through several emotions in rapid succession. Shock, confusion, anger, and finally, something that looked almost like relief before the anger returned. Are you insane? We've been together for 5 years? We have deposits on everything? Our families are expecting. Our families will get over it, I interrupted. And the deposits are just money. Just money. She stepped closer, her voice rising.
Harrison?
We're talking about our entire future.
Ow.
We're talking about a future neither of us actually wants. That stopped her cold. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I closed my laptop and stood up, walking to the window that overlooked downtown Portland. From here, I could see the building where Kian was probably having lunch with whatever venture capitalist Krizzia had arranged for him to meet, preparing. And narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. When's the last time you looked at me the way you look at him? I asked without turning around. I don't know what you mean. When's the last time you got excited about spending time with me? When's the last time you dressed up for one of our dates the way you dress up for your casual coffee meetings with Kian? Harrison, you're being ridiculous, am I? I turned to face her. 3 weeks ago, you forgot our anniversary dinner because you were helping Kian pick out furniture for his apartment. Last week, you canceled our weekend in Mount Hood because Kian needed help practicing his pitch presentation. Her cheeks flushed red. I'm just trying to help family. He's my family, Krizzia, not yours. At least not yet. Is that the way you're acting? Not ever. She sank into the chair across from my desk, her anger deflating into something that looked like panic. Harrison, I love you. Do you? I sat back down, leaning forward. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you love the idea of me. You love the stability, the security, the predictable future. But you don't love me. Tears started forming in her eyes. That's not fair, isn't it? Tell me honestly, if Kian asked you to leave Portland with him tomorrow to start over somewhere new, would you go? The silence stretched between us. That was answer enough? I thought so, I said quietly. Harrison, please. I'm just confused right now. Kian's return has stirred up old feelings, but that doesn't mean old feelings. I raised an eyebrow. How old are we talking? She bit her lip, looking away. Another long silence. We dated, she finally whispered. Before you and I got together, just for a few months senior year. The pieces clicked into place. Why she'd been so excited when I first introduced her to my family. Why she'd always asked about Kian whenever we visited my father. Why she'd been so devastated when he left for Europe, devastated enough that she'd accepted my comfort, my stability, my predictable love. So this whole time I said slowly, I've been the consolation prize. No, Harrison, it wasn't like that. Then what was it like? She struggled for words, tears now flowing freely. It was ... I cared about you. I do care about you. Left, I was heartbroken, and you were there for me. You made me feel safe, loved, but not the way he made you feel. Different, she said quietly. You made me feel different. Right. I nodded, feeling strangely calm. Different, safe, stable. The kind of love that wouldn't be the worst thing that could happen to you. Her head snapped up. What? Nothing, I said. Just something I overheard. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see the exact moment she realized how much I knew, how much I'd figured out. Harrison, I never meant for this to happen. I know you didn't. Stood up again, walking around the desk to face her. Krizzia, I'm not angry with you. I'm not even angry with Kian. You can't help who you love. Then why are you doing this? Because we all deserve better. You deserve to be with someone who makes you feel alive, not safe. Kian deserves to know the truth about how you feel. And I deserve to be with someone who chooses me first, not as a backup plan. She was crying harder now, mascara running down her cheeks. But what if I'm making a mistake? What if Kian doesn't feel the same way? What if I'm throwing away something? Real for something that might not work? Then you'll figure it out, I said gently. But you'll figure it out honestly, without dragging me along as your safety net. She looked up at me, and for the first time in weeks, I saw the real Krizzia, not the conflicted, guilty woman who'd been pretending to plan our wedding while pining for my brother, but the woman I'd fallen in love with 5 years ago? I'm sorry, she whispered. I know, me too. She gathered her things slowly, pausing at the door. Harrison, what are you going to do now? I smiled, and I could tell it surprised her. I'm going to live my life, for the first time in 5 years. I'm going to do exactly what I want to do, which is, you'll see. After she left, I sat back down at my desk and opened my laptop. I had emails to send, calls to make, plans to execute. Because what neither Krizzia nor Kian knew was that I'd been preparing for this moment for almost 2 years. My father's company, Stone and Associates, was about to become something extraordinary. And Kian's return had just given me the perfect opportunity to put my plan into motion. Phase 1. Let them think they'd won. Phase 2. Show them what winning actually looked like. Word traveled fast in Portland's tight-knit tech community. By the time I walked into the Northwest Tech Innovation Summit 3 days later, half the conference already knew about my broken engagement. The other half learned within the first hour. I could feel the stares and hear the whispered conversations. As I made my way through the Oregon Convention Center, people were waiting for me to have some kind of public breakdown, to see the successful tech consultant who'd lost his fiancée to his own brother. Instead, I grabbed a coffee from the vendor booth and headed straight to the panel I was moderating, Emerging Trends in AI-Driven Business Solutions. That's where I first saw her. She was sitting in the front row, laptop open, taking notes with the kind of focused intensity that suggested she actually understood what the panelists were discussing. Mid-20s auburn hair pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail, wearing a blazer that managed to look both professional and effortlessly stylish. When one of the panelists made a particularly bold claim about machine learning applications, she actually snorted quietly, but audibly. Enough that I caught it. After the panel, she approached the stage. "Excuse me, Mr. Hayes?" Her voice had a slight accent I couldn't place. "I'm Devlin Thorne, CTO at Cascade Analytics. I wanted to thank you for that panel, particularly for calling out the BS on slide 12. I smiled. "You caught that? Hard to miss. When someone claims their algorithm can predict consumer behavior with 98% accuracy across all demographics, they're either lying or they've never actually tested it outside of their lab. And which do you think it was?" "Both," she said with a grin that was equal parts mischievous and intelligent. "Definitely both." We ended up talking for 20 minutes about predictive analytics, market modeling, and the epidemic of overconfident startup founders in the Pacific Northwest. She was sharp, funny, and refreshingly honest about the challenges facing women in tech leadership. "I should let you get back to your conference," she finally said, glancing at her watch. "But I'd love to continue this conversation sometime. Maybe over coffee that doesn't cost $8 and tastes like burnt rubber." I was about to respond when I heard a familiar laugh from across the convention hall. Krizzia and Kian had just walked in together, her hand resting on his arm as he worked the room like the networking champion he'd always been. Devlin followed my gaze. "Ah, the infamous ex-fiancé and brother, I'm assuming? You heard about that? This is Portland Tech, not Manhattan Finance. Everyone knows everyone and everyone talks." She studied my face. "You seem remarkably calm for someone whose life just imploded. Maybe because it didn't actually implode. Interesting perspective." She pulled out her phone. "I'm going to give you my number, and when you're ready to explain that perspective over decent coffee, you should call me." After she left, I continued working the room, attending panels, and having the kinds of productive conversations that reminded me why I loved this industry. Every so often, I'd catch glimpses of Krizzia and Kian across the hall. She looked radiant, in a way I hadn't seen in months, and he was in full charm mode. Introducing her to everyone as his brilliant partner in all things, the confrontation I'd been expecting finally came during the networking reception that evening. I was talking with a group of venture capitalists about market opportunities in sustainable tech when Kian appeared at my elbow. "Harrison,
There you
are. I've been looking for you all day." The VCs glanced between us with barely concealed interest. This was the drama they'd all been waiting for. Kian and I said neutrally, "How are you settling in?" "Great, actually. Really great." Slightly manic energy he got when he was nervous, but trying to appear confident. "Listen, can we talk?" "Privately. Whatever you need to say, you can say here." His smile faltered slightly. "I don't think that's Kian. These are business colleagues. Whatever family drama you're worried about, they're not interested." Wasn't entirely true. VCS were hanging on every word, but they were trying to look disinterested. "Fine," he took a breath. I wanted to apologize. "About Krizzia. About how things happened." "What exactly are you apologizing for?" For ... for her choosing me over you. The group around us had gone completely silent now. I could see people at nearby tables turning to listen. Kian, I said calmly, Krizzia didn't choose you over me. She chose honesty over pretending. I'm grateful to both of you for that. He blinked, clearly thrown off his script. You're grateful? Absolutely. 5 years is a long time to spend with someone who's in love with someone else. Better to find out now than after the wedding, but aren't you angry? Hurt? Hurt? I genuinely considered the question. I'm disappointed that neither of you had the courage to be honest from the beginning, but angry? No. You can't help who you love. One of the VCs, Sarah Chen from Cascade Ventures, cleared her throat. That's a remarkably mature perspective, Harrison. It's a practical perspective, I replied. Anger is expensive. It costs time, energy, and focus. I've got better uses for all three. Kian was staring at me like I'd grown a second head, so you're just ... okay with this. I'm better than okay. For the first time in years, I know exactly what I want, and I'm free to pursue it. Which is, I smiled. You'll find out soon enough. Before he could respond, Krizzia appeared beside him, slipping her hand into his. She looked nervous but determined. Harrison, she said quietly, I'm sorry. For all of it, for not being honest, for stringing you along, for Krizzia. I cut her off gently. You don't owe me an apology. You owe yourself honesty. And it looks like you're finally giving yourself that. She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. I do love him. I always have. I know. And he loves you. Anyone can see that. Kian put his arm around her protectively, finally looking like the confident man he'd always pretended to be. So what happens now? Krizzia asked. Now you to build the life you actually want together, I said, and I do the same. As they walked away, Sarah Chen moved closer to me. That was either the most gracious handling of public humiliation I've ever seen, or you're playing a much deeper game than anyone realizes. I finished my drink and set the glass down on a nearby table. What makes you think it can't be both? The next morning I called Devlin Thorne and asked if she was free for that coffee conversation. She was. And over the course of 2 hours at a small cafe in the Alberta Arts District, I learned that she wasn't just brilliant and funny. She was also the missing piece of a plan I'd been developing for almost 2 years, a plan that was about to turn the Portland tech scene upside down, starting with Stone and Associates, starting with the company Kian thought he was entitled to inherit. The assault on my reputation began exactly 1 week after the tech conference. It was subtle at first. A few key clients mentioning they'd heard concerns about Stone and Associates' leadership stability. Then our biggest contract, a 3-year deal with Portland General Electric, was suddenly under review for corporate restructuring purposes. I was in my office reviewing the PGE cancellation notice when my assistant buzzed in. Mr. Hayes? There are some people here from the Oregon Secretary of State's office. They say it's about corporate governance issues. I knew immediately what this was about. Kian had finally made his move. The investigators were polite but thorough. They'd received an anonymous complaint alleging that I'd been operating Stone and Associates without proper co-owner consent, specifically. I'd been making major business decisions without consulting my equal partner in the company. Mr. Hayes, the lead investigator said, according to your father's will, you and your half-brother Kian Stone each inherited 50% of this company. Is that correct? That's correct. And yet our records show that you've been the sole signatory on all major contracts for the past 3 years. You've hired and fired employees, entered into financial agreements, and made strategic decisions. Without any documented input from Mr. Stone, I leaned back in my chair. Mr. Stone was in Europe for the past 3 years building his own business ventures. He expressed no interest in day-to-day operations. Do you have that in writing? Of course I didn't. Because Kian had been too. It's busy playing startup founder in Berlin to bother with paperwork. The investigation dragged on for 2 weeks. During that time, 3 more major clients canceled their contracts. Word spread through Portland's business. community that Stone and Associates was under regulatory review for corporate compliance violations. In the risk-averse world of corporate IT consulting, that was essentially a death sentence. The worst part wasn't the business losses. It was watching Kian play innocent while systematically destroying everything I'd built. He showed up to the office every day now, making a show of learning the business and getting up to speed on operations. He'd schedule meetings with our remaining clients, always with Krizzia by his side, positioning himself as the fresh leadership the company needed. "I'm just trying to bring some stability to the situation," he told anyone who would listen. "Harrison's been under a lot of stress lately. The broken engagement, the regulatory issues. Maybe it's time for some new perspective. As if he hadn't been completely absent for 3 years while I'd grown the company from a small consulting firm to one of Portland's leading tech solution providers. But the real blow came when I discovered he'd been meeting privately with our employees, suggesting that the company might be restructuring soon and that they should consider their career options. That's when I called Devlin. "I need to ask you something," I said, when she answered. "And I need a completely honest answer." "Shoot." "How much do you know about hostile takeovers in family businesses?" There was a pause. "Harrison, what's going on?" I told her everything. The investigation, the client cancellations, Kian's systematic campaign to position himself as the company's savior. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Can he actually force you out?" she finally asked. "He's trying. He might succeed." I rubbed my temples, feeling the weight of 3 years of 18-hour days and careful planning potentially crashing down around me. The investigation gives him leverage. If the state determines I've been operating outside proper corporate governance, they could force a restructuring. What would that mean? It would mean Kian gets what he's always wanted: control of the company our father built, and I get to watch everything I've worked for get handed to someone who couldn't be bothered to show up. "Harrison." Her voice was gentle but firm. Tell me about your father." The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "In all our conversations, you've mentioned him exactly twice. Both times you changed the subject immediately. For someone whose inheritance is causing this much trouble, that seems significant." I stared out my office window at the Portland skyline, seeing the city where I'd grown up, where I'd learned that being the older, more responsible son didn't matter if you weren't also the charming, charismatic one. "My father favored Kian," I said finally. "Always. From the moment Kian was born, I went from being his son to being his disappointment." "What do you mean?" "I was 8 when Kian was born. Before that, I thought my dad was proud of me. I was a good student, well-behaved, interested in the same things he was: computers, problem-solving, building things. But Kian was ... magnetic. Even as a baby, he could light up a room. As he got older, he was funny, spontaneous, the kind of kid everyone wanted to be around." "And your father preferred that?" "My father was a salesman at heart. He understood charisma, charm, the ability to make people like you. Those were the skills that built his business. I had technical ability, but Kian had the personality." Still remember the exact moment I realized I'd lost my father's respect. I was 12. Kian was 4, and we were at a company barbecue. I'd spent weeks preparing a presentation about a new software system I'd designed for tracking client projects. But when it came time to present, Kian wandered onto the makeshift stage and started telling jokes to the crowd. Everyone laughed, including my father. "That's my boy," Dad had said, scooping Kian up. "Natural-born leader." I never gave my presentation. "Why did he leave you equal shares?" Devlin asked. "Guilt, maybe. Or maybe he knew that Kian couldn't actually run a business. He could just charm people into thinking he could. But by then, it was too late for us to have any kind of real relationship." "Harrison, can I ask you something else?" "Sure." "This plan you keep mentioning, the one you've been working on for 2 years, did it have anything to do with proving your father wrong?" The question hit deeper than I expected. I'd never thought about it that way, but she was right. Every late night I'd spent building the business, every strategic decision I'd made, every client relationship I'd cultivated, it had all been about proving that I was more than just the disappointment who couldn't command a room. "Maybe," I admitted. "Then we need to accelerate it." "What do you mean?" I mean, if Kian thinks he can destroy what you've built and take credit for your father's legacy, he's about to learn something about underestimating quiet, strategic people. Devlin, I appreciate the support, but this isn't your fight, actually. It is. Because 3 days ago, Cascade Analytics received a very interesting offer from a newly formed investment group. They want to acquire our AI development platform. For significantly more than it's worth, my blood went cold. Who's the investment group? Kian Stone and Associates? Apparently, he's been telling potential investors that he has exclusive access to cutting-edge AI technology through his business partnerships. He's been using our conversations as proof of concept for deals he doesn't actually have the authority to make the pieces clicked into place. Kian wasn't just trying to take over Stone and Associates. He was using our family business as collateral to build his own empire, making promises he couldn't keep and deals he had no right to make. Been planning this since before he came back from Europe, I said. From Europe, I said. Probably, but Harrison, he made one crucial mistake, which is he assumed you'd react the way you always have, quietly, responsibly, without fighting back. But people change. And I think it's time to show your brother and everyone else exactly who you've become. That night I opened the secure folder on my laptop that I'd labeled Project Phoenix. Inside were 2 years' worth of preparation, planning, and carefully cultivated relationships that would change everything. It was time for Kian to learn what real strategy looked like. Project Phoenix wasn't about saving Stone and Associates. It was about letting it burn. I revealed this to Devlin the next morning over coffee in my apartment, spreading 2 years' worth of documentation across my dining table. Her eyes widened as she processed what she was seeing. Harrison, this is incredible. You've been planning to leave the family business this entire time. Not leave, I corrected. Graduate. The documents told the whole story. For the past 2 years, while Kian was failing in Europe and I was building Stone and Associates into a regional powerhouse, I'd also been quietly establishing something else entirely. Phoenix Technologies. A next-generation AI consulting firm that existed only on paper until now. I've been using Stone and Associates as a proving ground, I explained. Every successful project, every satisfied client, every innovation, I documented it all. Not for the company, but for myself. Devlin picked up a folder labeled Client Migration Strategy. You've been preparing to take the clients with. You. The ones worth taking. See, Kian made a fundamental error in his research. He assumed that our clients were loyal to the Stone and Associates brand. But brands don't solve complex technical problems. People do. I'm the person they've been working with for 3 years. What about the regulatory investigation? I smiled. That was the best thing that could have happened to me, because it forced me to document every decision I've made, every contract I've negotiated, every strategic choice that built this company. The investigators aren't going to find corporate governance violations. They're going to find a complete record of my contributions versus Kian's, which are mine. $2.3 million in revenue growth, 15 major client acquisitions, and a 94% customer retention rate. Kian's 0. He's literally contributed nothing to this company except his name on the inheritance paperwork. Devlin leaned back, impressed. So when the investigation concludes, the state will likely recommend that operational control remain with the person who's actually been operating the company. But by then it won't matter. I pulled out the final folder, the one that would change everything. 3 weeks ago, I submitted incorporation papers for Phoenix Technologies. Yesterday, I signed a partnership agreement with Cascade Analytics. Today, I'm resigning from Stone and Associates. Harrison, that's brilliant. But what about my phone rang? Kian's name appeared on the screen. Perfect timing, I said, putting it on speaker. Harrison, we need to talk now. His voice was tight. With panic. What's wrong, Kian? Portland General Electric just called. They want to discuss resuming their contract, but they specifically requested to work with you personally, not the company you. Interesting. And 3 other clients called this morning with the same request. What did you tell them? I caught Devlin's eye. She was grinning. I told them the truth, that I'd be happy to continue working with them, just not through Stone and Associates. Silence. Then, what the hell does that mean? Means, little brother, that you're about to inherit exactly what you deserve. A company name, an office lease, and whatever clients think the Stone brand is worth more than actual competence. You can't do this. Actually, I can. I'm not taking anything that belongs to Stone and Associates. I'm taking my reputation, my relationships, and my expertise, all things I built myself. The regulatory investigation will conclude that I've been the responsible party all along, which is why the state will probably recommend you buy out my shares if you want to maintain control. Another silence, longer this time. How much? His voice was barely a whisper. Market value, about $800,000 for my 50%. I don't have that kind of money. Then I guess you'll have to be a very persuasive partner. Good luck with that. I hung up and looked at Devlin. Phase 3 begins tomorrow. What's Phase 3? Phoenix Technologies officially launches. With the founding team that includes the former CTO of Cascade Analytics, if she's interested. Devlin's smile was brilliant. She's very interested. Within 48 hours, the Portland tech community was buzzing. Harrison Hayes, the quiet strategist who'd gracefully handled his public humiliation, had just announced the launch of the most anticipated new firm in the Pacific Northwest. Meanwhile, Kian Stone was left explaining to increasingly nervous clients why the person who'd actually solved their problems was no longer available through Stone and Associates. The gift I'd promised him was finally ready to be delivered. 6 months later, I was standing in the floor-to-ceiling windows of Phoenix Technologies' new office in the Pearl District, watching Portland's skyline light up in the evening sun. Devlin came up behind me, wrapping her arms around my waist. "The Johnson Industries contract came through," she said. "That's 12 major clients in 6 months. Not bad for a dead company," I replied, leaning back against her. Phoenix Technologies had exceeded every projection. We'd grown from 2 founders to 15 employees, with a client roster that included some of the Pacific Northwest's most innovative companies. More importantly, we'd built something that was entirely ours. No family baggage, no inherited expectations, just pure merit and partnership. "How's Kian doing?" Madeline asked. I glanced at my phone where I'd received yet another voicemail. From my half-brother, still calling, still hoping I'll come back and save Stone and Associates. The family business had hemorrhaged clients after my departure. Without my technical expertise and client relationships, Kian had been left managing an empty shell. He'd tried hiring consultants, partnering with other firms, even reaching out to former employees who'd followed me to Phoenix. Nothing worked. Last week, he'd finally admitted defeat and put the company up for sale. The asking price was barely enough to cover the office lease and outstanding debts. And Krizzia, happy, from what I hear. She and Kian moved to Seattle last month. Apparently, he got a job at a startup there. I turned to face her. "You know what's funny? I think this worked out exactly how it was supposed to." "How so?" Kian got what he always wanted, to be free from his older brother's shadow. Krizzia got the passionate, unpredictable love story she was dreaming of. And I got something I didn't even know I was looking for, which is the life I actually chose. A partner who chose me first. Business built on my own terms. Nice. I kissed her forehead. I spent 30 years trying to earn approval from people who would never give it. This whole situation forced me to stop asking for permission to be successful. The irony wasn't lost on me. Kian's betrayal had been the catalyst for everything. Good in my life now, by trying to take what he thought I valued most, he'd freed me to discover what I actually valued. "So what was the gift?" Devlin asked. "It's the one you promised them in your speech that first day?" I smiled, thinking about how far we'd all come. Freedom. I gave them the freedom to be together without guilt, and myself the freedom to stop settling. For second place in my own life, that's very philosophical. It's very true. The best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting everything you ever wanted while your enemies realize they never knew what they were fighting for. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Harrison, this is Krizzia. I heard about Phoenix Technologies. I'm proud of you. You deserve all the success coming your way." I showed the message to Devlin. "Are you going to respond?" "Already did," I said, deleting the message. "By living well." Outside, Portland hummed with the energy of a city full of dreamers and builders. And for the first time in my life, I was both. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.